Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Sean O'Keefe says if you want to launch your career, just zig when the others zag. Sean, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Now, Sean, you have a book, Launch Your Career, very appropriately named. And I told you before the show, I love this book. I think it's perfect for our audience. You make a lot of great points. And I love the way you started out because you talked about your own job search in the sporting athletic world. So I think there's a lot of great pointers there. Can you give us some of the points that you mentioned in your book?
You bet. I started off going to community college. I transferred to a 4-year public university. My junior year, I'm sitting in class, and I was a communication major, and I minored in sports management. I'm sitting in a sports management class, and the professor says, who in here would enjoy having a paid internship with a sports team this summer? Well, as you can imagine, every student raised their hand. And this professor had 3 classes of 60 students, and he said to us, I have 5 internships that I can hand out. He said, the only fair way I know how to give out and distribute these internships, these 5 internships, is to the students with the best grades. Well, Bill, my head went down, my shoulders shrunk. I was not one of the students with the best grades. But he went on to say, if you consider yourself a hard worker, come to my office hours and I'll give you some tips to increase your chances of landing a job an internship in professional sports, even if you don't have the best grades and you don't have any connections through family or friends. So I thought to myself, okay, that's me. So I went to the office hours, and with this professor's coaching, I took a very strategic and proactive approach to reaching out to professionals, particularly mid-level management, at a bunch of sports teams from the region that I lived in. And in doing so, and it didn't happen right away, it took a couple of months, but I ended up landing over the next 2 years, a year and a half, 3 internships. The first one came after 2 months worth of effort. One was with the Oakland A's, one was with the San Francisco Giants, and one was with the San Francisco 49ers.
So
and
top major professional teams that we all know. This isn't even the minor leagues, which would be great. You started at the top.
Yeah. So, my professor said, and I teach my students this now, start by making a top 10 list. So everyone out there listening right now, you might have no interest in sports, but everyone has in their mind maybe a dream job. Maybe you have this, you'd love to do something as a career, but it doesn't pay very well. So you don't think you can do that. Well, the beauty of internships is you get to try on a job in an industry, in a company or an organization. And so don't limit yourself when you're a college student. So I encourage everyone to start by making a top 10 list. So when I made a top 10 list, I didn't put the minor league teams on there. I put the major league teams in the geographic areas of the country that I wanted to live and work in. And 2 of those 3 internships that I received were in what's called the hidden job market, meaning the internships were never posted online. And one of the internships, the woman created just for me because she was impressed that I was reaching out proactively as a college student. And those 3 internships led to a full-time job after graduation. So I'll be forever grateful to that college professor who gave me those tips. And that's why I became a teacher myself, was to pay forward that gift which was given to me. Now,
if I remember, though, you're kind of modest in the way you're telling our audience. A couple of things that I picked up through there. When you sent out letters, and I think you sent out about 30, you were particular about the envelope because you knew they opened larger envelopes, that not the usual number 10 envelope that we get, the white one in the mail. You got the paper size one that's about 12 inches by 10 inches or something. And that's
right. So I knew that most college students, they're just applying to jobs online. So how do you zig when others are zagging? So one of the things is to reach out to people directly, and not the HR, not the recruiter types, but the people who are running the departments that you're interested in working in. And then, so of course I tried email, and I would even pick up the phone, even though that's scary as heck as a college student. I mean, I was so nervous when I actually did that, but you got to be willing to step out of your comfort zone to try and get ahead of the competition. But the third modality was sending snail mail. And I thought to myself, so I wasn't the smartest student, but I realized that if someone's going to get a piece of mail, you could either send a normal envelope, like you said, or you can buy an oversized envelope. So when you put your resume inside in a letter, stating that you're interested in an internship or want to have a career conversation, et cetera, you don't have to fold the resume. And you should probably print the resume and the letter on cardstock. So that way it's nice and sturdy. It says something about yourself. And so you get this oversized envelope, you put your 2 pieces of paper in there, and then on the front of the envelope, don't just use a ballpoint pen, because that looks very puny.
I remember that part of your book, right?
Yeah. Get yourself a Sharpie and address it. And the likeliness of a professional opening up something in the mail that's handwritten, even if you don't have the perfect penmanship and handwriting, your document, your envelope's likely to get opened. And that worked. It didn't work right away. As you mentioned, I had to reach out to 30 different people at 5 different professional sports teams. And I would contact the director of marketing, the director of community relations, the director of finance, the director of sales. I just knew that mid-level management, that would probably be my best shot at trying to get an internship, even though I didn't have any connections. And that very first internship with the Oakland A's, there was a director of marketing who got my envelope and didn't call me back right away. But after, a week after that, I sent the envelope in the mail. I sent a follow-up email, and then I made a follow-up phone call asking if she received it. And on the phone call that I made, she said, yeah, actually, I did receive it. I was quite impressed that you reached out and you put this together. I don't have approval for an intern, but I think what you're doing is great. I said, well, can I keep in touch? She said, sure. So then I would call her like every other week and just inquire. And long story short, she said, I cannot get approval from HR to have an intern, but I'll tell you what, if you want to come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoon from 12 to 4, and you do a good job the rest of the summer, or not the rest of the summer, this summer, I'll allow you to put Oakland A's on your resume, and I'll write you a letter of recommendation. And so I said, that sounds great. I had another job, part-time job, that I was being paid for. So I was fortunate to be in a position where I could take 8 hours of unpaid work. But because I was able to do that, I then had this person with the San Francisco 49ers, when I was reaching out by phone and by mail, when I reached out by phone and email, this person always said, hey, check back. And then once I had the internship with the Oakland A's, even though it was unpaid, it allowed me to have credibility, and I had a letter of recommendation. So that helped me land a paid internship with the San Francisco 49ers.
And if there's something I know it was a new term to me, you talked about getting an informational interview. What is that? I mean, I've always thought of an interview, they talk to you about if you were coming in for a job. So what's the informational interview? Yeah,
an informational interview. And actually, just in the last 24 months, we've changed the terminology, but I'll get to that in a second. An informational interview is just having a conversation with someone, just to learn about their career, their company, their industry, etc. And but what I realized in doing research for the book is that the term informational interview creates anxiety for a lot of students. Even though the word informational is in front of the word interview, students get nervous just hearing the word interview. So what we did was we took the same email templates and the same letter templates and the same phone call templates and the same LinkedIn templates, and we just substituted the term informational interview, and we put in career conversation. And not only did it reduce stress and anxiety for students, the yes rate of professionals saying yes to taking a meeting for 20 minutes went way up.
Neat. So just by changing the words.
Yeah, just by changing the words, just saying career conversation.
Wow. You've given us so many tips already. Sean, I'd like our audience to know, in case they're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. The person you want to listen to today is Sean O'Keefe. He's the author of Launch Your Career. Sean, tell us, this is a great book, and it's a lot of fun, and it's something that every college student or anybody looking for a job should be have right on them and carrying around with them. Where can we get the book, and is there a website where we can find out more information?
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, any major retailer will have the book. The long version of the title is Launch Your Career, How Any Student Can Create Relationships with Professionals and Land the Internships and Jobs They Want. We also have a direct website, launchyourcareerbook.com. And then I'm also the founder and a partner of a social enterprise called Career Launch. If there's any K through 12 leaders or higher education leaders listening, our social enterprise website is careerlaunch.academy. Not careerlaunch.com, but careerlaunch.academy.
We're going to ask you for that information again, because I'm sure there's some parents listening and big brothers and sisters who's saying, my younger brother or my son doesn't realize it now, but this is just what he or she needs. So that information will come again in the show. So if you didn't get time to get it down, get time to get the pencil and paper ready, Sean will give us some more information. Sean, from what I understand from your book, something like 80% of the jobs come from personal connections as opposed to sending a resume. Did I get those numbers correctly?
Yeah, and this is actually a well-documented statistic that hasn't changed much over the last 30 years. It was most recently published by two Stanford professors in some research that they were doing. And so it's called the hidden job market. 80% of jobs are never posted online. They're earned through relationships and personal connections.
And obviously, unless we've read a book like this or talked to someone like you or hear this show, we wouldn't know that. And we keep trying the old way. And that's why we're having and even if we get a job, if it takes 4 or 6 months, well, it would be a lot better if it took 3 or 4 weeks or months, because the less time we're out of work, the more money we're making, the more experience we're getting. And obviously, we're in a field. I think you have a quote in the book. You say, students who take intentional and strategic action vastly outperform their peers in landing jobs. Is this because they've taken control of the situation themselves?
Yeah. So the law of intentionality, the law of attraction, and it goes along with, what social scientists have learned about goal setting. Having goals is great. Writing down your goals on a piece of paper or into a digital document, and then printing that document and putting it on your refrigerator or putting it on a mirror in your bathroom and look at it while you brush your teeth every day. That is even more powerful, and you're more likely to be successful. So going back to the very first step any job seeker should make is create a top 10 list of organizations that they might want to work for. And that list might change in weeks or months and certainly years ahead. But when you think about the organizations that you want to work for, and knowing that 80% of jobs are not posted online, it really opens a lot of people's eyes and says, okay, well, even though there's nothing online, that doesn't mean there aren't jobs available. So it's incumbent upon us as job seekers to take a holistic approach. See, here's the thing. Over 90% of job seekers spend 90% of their efforts by just clicking on online postings. But the research says that only 2% of online postings or online applications receive an initial interview. So as you can imagine, that creates a lot of frustration for job seekers. And some people get beaten down by the process and just settle for a job, the first job that they can get, because who knows if another one is going to come along because of all the rejection that they received along the way. The good news is, if we can teach students and job seekers to also be proactive in it, there's nothing wrong with applying online. If that can work for you, great. But at the same time, if you can develop an internal advocate at the organizations where you're applying, so not just your top 10, but also the organizations you're applying to online, you should simultaneously be contacting people and creating career conversations informally, because then you can develop an internal advocate. And social scientists report that if you can develop an internal advocate at a company that you're applying to, you're 12 times more likely to get the position.
See, all these things, obviously, I didn't know. I'm sure our audience, being younger, they have no idea of most of them. And this is what you do, and you've done extensive research for it. So listen to the expert. This is the man who knows how to get the job. He's done it. He's been there. Why reinvent the wheel? And not only that, but I think you mentioned in your book, by taking proactive action, that increases the person's confidence and the market that they can get out to. Am I correct?
Yeah, students report, and this is so fulfilling. And I got into teaching, and then the book came about because of my class, and I got into all of this just because I wanted to pay forward what was given to me as a college student. And so, it's certainly great to help students get internships and jobs, But it's even more fulfilling when a student says, hey, you increase my self-confidence. Not just self-confidence related to like career, overall self-confidence. I used to be a huge introvert, and now I've learned to be more extroverted. And this confidence that I got from, reaching out to professionals and stepping out of my comfort zone, that's carried over into other aspects of my life of, asking people out on dates, etc. Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that. It's very rewarding.
And to be honest, I find that too, no matter what I do, the more work I put into something, I just feel better about it. I feel stronger because now I've taken control. And I'm not here to endorse your book or anybody else's book, but the statements you're making are just plain out true. And obviously, if a student is trying to get that job, why not get all the help you can get? You have a fun term in there. You say the art of professional persistence is a term I haven't heard when you're laughing about it. So tell us what that is.
Oh, it just brings a smile on my face because our society, and I say this as maybe with my teaching hat on, especially maybe Gen Z. I know there's students of all ages, but so many students in society at large is risk adverse, and a lot of times for unfounded reasons. And so when it comes to something that's important to life, so I talk about at the end of the book, the 7 pillars of life. And one of those for me, and other people might have 3 pillars or 13 pillars, but everyone has certain pillars of their life. And for a lot of people, career is one of those pillars. You got to give it everything you got because we have one life to live. We're going to spend a lot of hours in our profession. And any college student out there, you're putting a lot of time and or money into your college education. So if you're going to do that, let's make sure that we get great return on our investment and we land a career that we're going to enjoy and be fulfilled at. And so if that takes a little discomfort by reaching out to people that you've never met and asking for a 20-minute career conversation, knowing that and going into it, knowing that not everyone's going to say yes. Some people are just going to say, no, I'm too busy, or some people are just not going to respond, which the younger kids these days call getting ghosted. But what's the harm? If someone says, no, I'm too busy, or you don't get a response, that's why we create a list of 25. Not everyone's going to say yes, but if you follow the career launch method and all the micro steps of the 8 steps of the method, you're going to have success and you're going to meet people. And so, yeah, I would just encourage everyone out there listening. The art of professional persistence means a couple things. One, it means reaching out to multiple people and not stopping if you get a no from one person. Keep persisting. And then when you do reach out to someone, don't stop after the very first time you send someone an email. Follow up with a phone call. Follow up with a letter in the mail. Obviously, you don't want to be annoying or aggressive. So in the book, in step 4 of the method, we talk about the 10 business day outreach method, where you mix up modes of communication and outreach. So that way you're not putting yourself at all in jeopardy of being aggressive or annoying, but you're also not giving up after sending one email or making one phone call.
Now, Sean, you mentioned before the law of attraction. A lot of people have heard about that, and if they haven't, it just sounds good. So what does it mean, and how does it fit into our job search?
Yeah, it means that when we're thoughtful and intentional about what we want to achieve, and not just thoughtful, but also going back to the goal setting, writing it down, we're more likely to start taking action and having conversations. Let me tell you a story about this. And I made this mistake, and I hope none of your listeners make this mistake. When I was in college, at the top of the show, we talked about how I wanted to work in professional sports, and I thought I had no connections. I was actually wrong, but I didn't realize it until I was 28. But that was way too late, when I was trying to get an internship back as an undergrad at 20 years old. So I'm at Easter Sunday one year, and I'm sitting on the couch with my uncle. We're watching the San Francisco Giants game on TV. And at the time, I'm working for the Oakland A's because this is, I'm in my late 20s. And he says, "Oh, Sean, you should meet, my friend who works for the San Francisco Giants. I should introduce you." I said, "Uncle Bill, you have a friend who works for the San Francisco Giants? Why didn't you tell me that?" He said, "Well, you never asked." Well, here's the thing. My uncle never went to college. He started working for the local gas and electric company right out of high school. And I just stereotyped him and assumed he didn't know anyone in professional sports. So I didn't even ask the question. So everyone listening right now, you may or may not want to work in professional sports. You probably don't, right? Whatever you do want to work in, whether it's a certain job function, a certain industry, or working at a certain company, organization, nonprofit, government agency, whatever it is for you, go around to everyone you know over the next weeks and months and ask this question. Very simple. You don't happen to know anyone who blank, do you? You don't happen to know anyone who's a nurse, do you? If you're interested in being in nursing. If you want to be in investment banking, you don't happen to know anyone who's in investment banking, do you? And that way, if they say, no, I don't, you expect to know. But here's the thing, law of attraction. If you ask that question to 100 people, you don't happen to know anyone who blank, do you? At some point, you're probably going to run into someone who says, yeah, you should talk to my wife. You should talk to my neighbor. You should talk to my cousin, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a great point, and it's the kind of thing most of us don't think of. That's why we need your book. Sean, once again, I'd like to let our audience know that if you haven't heard it before, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is author Sean O'Keefe. His book is Launch Your Career. And Sean, if you would again tell us where we can get the book and if there's a website where we can get more information.
You bet. Yeah. The book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target. Any major retailer has the book. Launch Your Career, how any student can create relationships with professionals and land the internships and jobs they want. And any higher ed leaders or K through 12 leaders that are listening, we have a social enterprise that's founded around this curriculum. We have micro-learning, assessment, train the trainer certifications. That website is www.careerlaunch.academy. Not .com, careerlaunch.academy.
And as a former teacher, I would say to anybody in the school systems, this is a must-have book, even if you just keep it on your desk and let the students read it or get a few ideas out of it. You wouldn't fix your car without a manual or some directive to put a table together even or something, a child's toy that's simple. Why go for a job that's going to change the rest of your life or certainly influence it without some guidelines? And here you have guidelines just to start off. Even if you only use 5, 10, or 15% of what Sean says, you're going to be in a much better place, quicker to get the job and sooner to see that money coming in and hopefully get something you really love, because you say that's the objective, to do what you love and get a job that you're going to enjoy every day. We use the expression corporate ladder, but I noticed you said careers aren't ladders. They're more like a jungle gym. Tell us what that means.
Yeah. It's a lot different than maybe 40 years ago, where maybe there was a lot more professionals where their career was linear. They got into a company and worked in a role, and then after so many years promoted and worked in that role for a while, and they got promoted and kind of just moved up over time. Nowadays, there's a lot more, call it job hopping, in shorter time at a particular organization. And then more and more you see folks taking lateral positions or switching out of an industry, not staying in the same industry for an entire lifetime or entire career span. And so, I lived this myself. I worked in professional sports for 7 years, realized it was a dream job when I was an undergrad, then realized it was a dream job for superficial reasons, and I really wanted to be of service to others. And so I thought about, I want to get a different job where I can be in leadership. So I went to a very unattractive industry that sold copiers and printers and IT services. But I'll tell you what, Bill, I had more fulfillment in my 7 years being a leader in an unattractive industry than being just an individual contributor in a very attractive industry. And then after 14 years in industry and in the last 6 of those years teaching as an adjunct, I took a $200,000 pay cut with approval from my wife to become a teacher.
Good thing you said that last part. With approval from your wife, most important.
Yes.
Well, obviously you found your calling, because this book is filled with so many good things. I copied down another statement too. A rejection is a necessary step in the process. And I guess all of us, if you've dated, you've been rejected somewhere along the way. If you've gone out for a team, unless you're that super athlete, at some point, maybe you were 7 years old or 20, you've been rejected or you were cut from the team, etc. So I'm guessing you're telling our audience, don't worry about that. That's part of it. And let's just keep going with it.
It's a numbers game. Yep. Realize that no's are going to happen and just expect it. And so part of things is mental. Part of what we teach students is the law of averages. Don't worry about, always getting a yes to everything. Just know that if you take the right steps, there will be some people that say yes. And then one of the things that we emphasize is telling students and job seekers why professionals will say yes to taking a 20-minute meeting with you. And so in the book, we go through the top 6 reasons of why professionals say yes. And when we do that, the students or the job seekers think, oh yeah, I get it. I was only thinking about my perspective of being like, oh, I would be bothering someone if I reached out. And actually, for a lot of people, we know this through our qualitative interviewing for the research that we did for the book. A lot of professionals, they're very happy that someone reached out. They want to give. They want to give back and pay it forward. They have empathy for college students, particularly nowadays. And then we ask students this question: think of yourself 20 years from now, and you have the job that you want to have. And one day you're looking at your laptop or your phone, and you're checking your email, and you see the subject line says the name of your college, and then in the body of the email, it's a crisp, concise email that acknowledges you and your career that you have now 20 years later. And the student says, I admire that and I'm interested in that too. Could we connect for 20 minutes? You imagine yourself 20 years from now. Don't you think you would say yes to that student who reached out to you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the students go, oh, yeah, I would. And then they go, oh, I get it.
It's so different, and you approach it differently, but you make us think, and that's what we want for the job. And also, we're getting some contacts we would not ordinarily have. Sean, once again, real quick, tell us the website where we should look.
Thank you, Bill. Launchyourcareerbook.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all major retailers, any higher ed leaders or K through 12 leaders. We have a social enterprise that provides multimodalities of this curriculum. www.careerlaunch.academy.
And if our audience didn't get it before, the book is Launch Your Career. The person you've been listening to today is Sean O'Keefe, spelled O''Keefe. Sean, thanks for being with us. We'd like our audience to know that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we'll continue our journey to success.